Hey guys, and welcome back to the Head Up Podcast. Connor here, and I'm joined by co-host Josh, as usual. And today we have a very special guest in 2016 Premiership coach, Shane Flanagan. How's it going, Shane?
G'day, boys. G'day, listeners. How we going?
Yeah, good. Yeah, so what we like to do at the start of every podcast, Shane, is we like to ask 6 quick-fire questions for our guest, and you answer with one.
Sounds good. I'm ready to go.
All right. Would you rather be a coach or be on Fox?
Be a coach.
Favorite fast food?
KFC.
NRL GOAT?
Cameron Smith.
Early 2022 Premiers prediction?
Roosters.
Favorite NRL team growing up?
Dragons.
Sweet. Too easy.
So what we like to do, Shane, is we like to sort of go through Peel's journeys from the very start to the end. So we're wondering how you got into rugby league in the first place. Like, when did you start playing?
I was as a kid. I just started playing. Mum and Dad were heavily involved in a junior club, which was St George Dragons, which is actually in there. It's called the St George Dragons, but it's in the Canterbury district. So it's a bit strange. And they wore a Roosters jersey, so I worked that one out. They were involved in that. And then all my mates and going through school, everyone just played rugby league. And on weekends, we just spent most of the weekend up at the park and waiting for our games to come around. And then when our games come around, we hope to get a run in one of the older grades or just play touch footy for the rest of the afternoon. It was just part of life during winter. And that's how I got into it. As I said, it wasn't a choice. It's just something I just grew into.
Yeah, absolutely. So keeping it on your younger career, who did you look up to as a kid?
When I was coming through, we were probably more so St George supporters. And, St George went through a period that they won a lot of comps, but I was only young then. So, when I was sort of probably an age that I was really influenced about rugby league was probably Canterbury Bankstown had a team where, David Gillespie and Terry Lamb and those type of players were playing. And, I really looked up to those type of players. They were the trendy team. They had power and they had some skill and they scored some tries. So probably Canterbury at that point. But, I was always a St George junior. But, when I started to get, 15, 16, 17, St George weren't going that well at that point. But, always a St George junior. But I really like the Canterbury side of that era.
Yeah. So in your playing career, you played under Warren Ryan, we understand. We obviously were a bit younger, so we understand about how legendary he was and all the stories. What was he like as a coach?
Yeah, he was a real influence on my coaching career later on. I didn't know it at the time, but the lessons that he taught us about, numbers and systems and the process of defence and attack was just something that we hadn't. I'd played first grade at St George and played all my life, and then come across Warren Ryan at West, and he just opened my eyes to so much more of rugby league and the tactical side of things, and not just running the football for the sake of running the football, who we're running it at and why, and a lot of support and people in motion around us. So he was well and truly before his time, and he definitely taught me a lot of stuff that I still use today, and still all those principles of especially offensively, why we were doing things. He taught us, and we still use today.
Yeah. So what was your favourite moment as a player in your career?
Obviously, making your first grade debut is always a good one. You always remember that. I played my first grade debut was against Parramatta at Parramatta Stadium. It was at the tail end of the year, and Parra was sort of had their peaks as well. So they were just sort of coming off a really good period. And the Dragons were just, a couple of older players were just starting to, for Craig Young, I think it was his last year, he retired. But, I got to play with him in my first grade game. He was a legend. And probably your first grade debut. But, we won a couple of lower grade comps at the Dragons as well, which was really enjoyable, to win some competitions with your mates at a really decent level. So we won some under 20s and done some 23 competitions, which was, really, really good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to your coaching, you obviously got the chance to coach a lot of great players like Paul Gallen, Chris Heinington. Who would you say are a couple of the players that really just stood out?
Oh, I've had a lot, even, when I first started coaching, I started coaching at Parramatta, and, I had the Jamie Lyons and Nathan Hindmarshes and Kalis's, and we had a really good Luke Burt. We had some really good footy teams. Jamie Lyon was a real special player. So was Nathan Hindmarsh from those areas. And then, I went on to the Roosters and coached the under-20s, and they never lost a game all year. And probably the most influenced player in that side was Jamie Soward. So, he kicked the winning field goal. So they were all special players. And then, then going on, to coach at NRL level at the Roosters, I was involved with probably, some of the superstars of the game, Freddie Fittler and, Luke Ricketson, and their whole team was star-studded. Every player nearly in their team played Origin. So it was really a Minicello. The whole side was rep players. So that was really different for me to coach at that level and then to coach rep players. So you really had to be prepared and know what you're talking about at that level. And then to move on to Cronulla, obviously coached some great players there, but, probably Gal stands out. But, all the players in 2016 side, they all played a part. Young blokes like Valentine Holmes and Jack Bird, they were the young crew. And then we had some older boys like Michael Innes, he said Chris Heinington, but, there's James Maloney, I said Mick Innes, Wade Graham was in the middle of that group. We had all different parts. We had some older boys who showed some real leadership and experience, and we had some boys in the middle, like Wade, that were just at the peak of their powers, and then we had some young players that were just ready to rip and tear. So it's hard to pick, but if I had to pick one, I definitely be Gal. He's just such a warrior. He led that club through some bad times, but led him through the good times as well. And got a special bond with him, and he always turned up to play. I can't remember too many bad games that Paul Gallen played, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had a lot of great experiences coaching the NRL sides, but as you mentioned before, you assistant coached, obviously, New South Wales and Australia. How was the experience compared to coaching NRL?
The Australian bit was pretty easy because I'd gone from club football with Ricky Stewart into Australia with Ricky Stewart. So I sort of knew what Ricky wanted in his training and how he wanted to prepare his team. So that was pretty easy, but it was still very exciting to coach at that level. And, we played a test match over in New Zealand, and I think someone got sent off in New Zealand in the first minute of the game. And New Zealand had to play with, 12 men for the rest of the game, and we won pretty easily in the end. I think it might have been Steve Maddai, actually. He might have knocked off Gaznier's head or something like that. I can't remember. I might be wrong, but it was definitely they definitely lost a player early. So coaching Australia was easy. Coaching Origin was definitely a challenge because, working with Craig Bellamy was something different. I knew him pretty well, but hadn't actually worked with him. So to work with him closely and prepare a footy side and understand what he wants daily, and go to his team meetings and staff meetings and all that sort of stuff was something that I treasured. And it was really it helped me in my own coaching career how to prepare a footy team, and I learned a lot off it. We didn't win too many games. We were involved in Origin for 3 years. We always went to a decider. We always won one, but we just couldn't nail that last game against, probably, one of the best Queensland side there's ever going to be. The Smiths, Cronks and Slaters, Inglisses and so on. They were a fantastic team, and to try and beat them was a real challenge, and we tried hard and probably got the best coach in the business to do it, but he still couldn't get it done as well.
Yeah. Another big team of our era, me and Connor's era, that we've watched is that Storm team, and you guys obviously beat them in 2016 in the grand final. Talk us through that season, what the atmosphere was like between the group, and did you expect to go as far as you did that season?
Probably my relationship with Craig Bellamy, and then him going to Melbourne, and then me at the Sharks, probably sort of got a bit of the rivalry going between the two clubs. Both clubs had some mighty battles leading up. There was, one game down at Shark Park that Cameron Smith got sin-binned. I think it was the first time in his career he got sin-binned. He stood on the sideline and the crowd give it to him. But, there's some super battles. I remember some at Amy Park where they actually touched us up one year, and 2016, the last game of the year, to win the minor premiership. If we won it, we win the minor premiership. If they win it, they win. They did win it, and they won the minor premiership, and they give us a touch up that day. And we all sort of got back into the sheds and realised that, what type of team they are. They're a fantastic footy team, but we always thought we could beat them on our day. If we got all our stuff together, we thought we could beat them, and we had the footy team to do it, and I had the players to do it. And so, the rivalry through that year was fantastic. And then post 2016, it's just been the same. Melbourne Sharks games have always got something special.
Yeah, absolutely. So keeping it on that 2016 grand final, obviously the Storm spread it right on that last play of the game. Did you have any in your head that they could score there?
Oh, yeah, always had a fear that they could score, but we'd practiced that type of scenario for, a couple of years, being a man down or trying to defend our try line to win a footy game, not a grand final. We didn't think we'd have to worry about, we'd finish every week with a little drill that we'd practice, and it'd be 13 on 10 or 13 on 8, and we had to defend our try line. And we didn't realise when we were practicing it that it'd probably be the most important drill that we've ever done in the history of the club, to defend our try line when we really had to at the end of a game to save or to win a competition. And we did that. If you ever watch it again, there's some things that happen around the back. Jack Bird was right centre, and he got over to the left-hand side and then come back to the right. Valentine Holmes did the very, very similar. There's players everywhere just moving together. It was something special to watch in the end. And they shifted it to the left. They went back to the right, and they come back to the left again. I thought if Cameron Smith kicked, they might have scored, but they shifted again. And once again, they shifted over to the right-hand side, and we still had a line intact. And we had 13 in the line defending our try line. And, Ricky Litelli come up with a really important tackle, and, we win a competition. But you there? Yep. Yeah, sorry. But that sort of stuff we practiced for a long period of time, and we were lucky enough to get an opportunity to use it in the big game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that Sharks 2016 team has gone down as one of the best grand final teams ever. I would say 2015 Cowboys and 89-90 Raiders, pretty close. Would you say that the Sharks 2016 team is the best grand final team ever?
Oh, that's a hard one. Best Sharks grand final team forever, that's for sure. They've been in a couple of grand finals and not been good enough to get it. This side set some amazing records during the year. They won 16 in a row. And had a draw against the Gold Coast in real wet conditions. We could have had an opportunity to win that game as well. Had a couple of shots of field goal, and we just couldn't nail them. So we had a draw against the Gold Coast. But to win 16 in a row and to go on and win the grand final and the club's first, that team is a special team, and I was so privileged to coach them. But to compare sides that win grand finals is really tough job. And it's more about the game. What sort of game it was. I agree with you. 2015 Cowboys game was an outstanding game. It wasn't much into the lead up, but the last 10 or 15 minutes was amazing. And I think that made that game. I remember some Steve Jackson, the try that he scored for Canberra against Balmain. That was a long time ago, but there's been some fantastic grand finals, and I'm sure there's going to be some more.
Yeah. So you've had some great personalities in that 2016 side, like James Maloney, McInnes. Do you have any funny stories of them throughout your time coaching them, or?
Oh, there's plenty of stories. They were always up to tricks. Usually they were playing tricks on me, but they used to play tricks either on me most of the time or on Gal. They used to get Gal to in training, in warm-ups and that, they used to have a little bit of a plan between themselves not to pass him the ball and see how long it'd take for him to realise that they weren't passing him the ball. They'd always let him be a lead runner, and they'd pass out the back, and they did it quite often. But Gal eventually clicked on, and he made him pay. But there's some funny stories there. James Maloney was always up to something. He wasn't really good in the gym, but he was a character and he was good to have around. And Michael Innes was super serious about his preparation, and James Maloney was probably a bit laid back. So they were really interesting about their dynamics, how they got on, but they got on really well. So For Andrew Fafita, there was always something happening around Andrew. He's a funny bugger, and yes, heaps of stories. Probably not too many I could tell on this forum anyway.
Yeah. What was Gal like leading the side with all those leaders? Was it a hard thing for him, or was it they sort of fell into line under him?
Oh, no, they all respected him. Like Michael came from Canterbury the year before, and he was captain of Canterbury, and he sort of was concerned about how it was going to evolve, the captaincy and the vice captaincy. But we had three captains. We had Gal as our leader, and then we had Michael Innes and Wade Graham, and they all had specific roles that they filled during the week. Obviously, Gal was the captain of the club, and he was more about game day. Gal controlled game day and performance. He's a little bit older. He's, had three kids at the time, so he had a lot of other commitments as well. Well, Michael Innes was about training, about preparation, so he made sure that, if we thought training was falling away or slackening off, Michael Innes would address it. And then Wade was more about making sure all the boys were happy and on the right track and behaving well and, keeping a harmonious group. So they worked really well together, and all stood up at different times. I remember in the semi-final against Canberra Raiders, Gal didn't play. He hurt his back. And Wade got knocked out in the first minute of play. So it was really important that game. Kurt Capewell come on and played an outstanding game, his first probably big game that he'd ever played. And he came on and played really well. And Michael Innes had to stand up that day and be leader. And there was games during the year that Michael and Gal weren't there, and Wade had to stand up. So there was a really good mix, and they worked really well together. But as I said, that whole group, there was probably 23, 24 players that year that we used. And then all of them, did their job to get us the first competition. And, I remember clearly how well the whole group got on week after week. They love going to train. They love being together, which is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping it on Paul Gallen, he's obviously got a fight coming up against Lussick. Do you think he'll win?
Tomorrow night, yeah, he's trained really hard. Obviously, he trained for a fight that was supposed to be a couple of weeks ago and got called off because he had COVID. Not Gal, his opponent, but he's got Dusty Lussick this time. He's not real happy that it's only 3 2-minute rounds. Gal can win it in 3 2-minute rounds, but he's a boxer and he likes to work people out. Talking to Gal's trainer, the way Gal's evolved in his boxing since he's finished playing football, at the start it was a bit, he liked boxing and he'd done a bit of training and so on, and he was probably good at it. But now he's a really good boxer. He knows how to box. And you saw against, Hooney, probably the best boxer Australia in heavyweight has got. Gal took him all the way to the end. It was a fantastic fight. And every week Gal gets better at his trade. So, I think he'll win and win pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw today that Lussick went in at 110 kilos and Paul went in at 101. Do you know what the reasoning is behind
that? No, Gal's always been about that. Gal's surprising that, he's played against all players that have been 110, 115 kilos in the front row, in the middle, all his career. And he's always just pushed around. Sometimes he's been under 100 kilos. He trains, he doesn't carry any fat. He's not that tall. But that's his good weight for him at the moment. And that's what he's been for the last 12 months.
Yeah. So you've done numerous roles as both a head and an assistant coach. What are the main differences in the role, and what's your favourite between the two?
Look, obviously, head coach is, what I want to do, but an assistant coach is challenging as well. I enjoyed working at the Dragons last year. Enjoyed working with Ricky Stewart and Craig Bellamy at different stages. So they're all different challenges, and you have to still work really hard, and you have to do your job to make it happen. And head coaches rely so heavily on assistant coaches. It's too hard these days to not have good assistant coaches. In 2016, I got Steve Price, who just got sacked from the Dragons the year before, to come to me and help me at the Sharks with James Shepherd, who was another good assistant coach. Without them, it just doesn't happen. Like I think I could say, we still would have won the comp because I'm still the coach and we still got the players. You need so many things to go right. And, those assistant coaches' roles are so important. So whilst they're different, they're still enjoyable to do. And to be around a team environment and, win footy games on a weekend, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you had to give your old self some advice about coaching, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Be careful who you trust is probably one thing. But I've learned a lot over the last period. That footy coaching is not just out in the footy field anymore. Like from an NRL perspective, when I started, I had 4 full-time staff. I had a strength and conditioning coach. I had a trainer. And we had a football manager. That's all we had. Now they've got 20 and 30 people on staff in an NRL team. So the role has evolved. In 2010 when I took over, that was what we had. And you had to do a bit of jack of all trades. You had to do recruitment, retention. You had to cook the barbecue. You had to do a lot of jobs. Now there's other people in the organisation to do those things, and you have to allow them to do their job. And you're accountable for a lot of things because you're the head coach. But the roles changed over time, and so have I.
Yeah. So you obviously did a bit of commentating last year, which we watched a lot of games together, Connor and I, and we enjoyed. How did you find that? What was that experience like for you?
Shitting myself at the start, especially at Fox. Such a big coverage on some of the games that they do, and you need to make sure that you're switched on and your comments are. I'm not really commentating on the game. I've got a different role at Fox where I'm just giving some expert analysis, as they say, and more about what happened rather than what's about to happen. So I enjoyed it a lot. I was really nervous at the start, but as time went on, and working with some really good people there, I enjoyed it a lot. Walk in there, watch the game, give your thoughts on the game, and then get out. So it was enjoyable compared to what I've been used to in coaching, where excuse me, that it's 7 days a week, and on the weekends, 80 minutes decide how hard or how good you've worked during the week. It's a completely different sort of situation, but really enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the Bulldogs have made a lot of key signings next year, and of course your son Kyle is over there. Do you think he'll be able to cement a starting spot, obviously with Matt Burton, Jack Averillo, Brandon Wakeham over there? Do you think he'll be able to cement a spot?
Oh, that's the plan. He's trained really hard. They finished today, I think, their training, and he's trained really hard. He's put on some good weight. He's weighing in about 90 kilos now, so he's struggling last year. Probably mid-season he was 85 kilos, so he can hold 90. It'd be nice. Last year didn't turn out the way we wanted it, so we've got to go in with a positive attitude, or Kyle has as well. And he's just got to fight for his position. Whether he starts there, I'm not quite sure. He'll get his opportunity at some point. He's a good player and he's a first grader, so he just needs to work hard like any other player in the other club and get his position. And they've recruited some good players, so I think that will make it easier for him. We saw at the Roosters what he could do. He was equals highest point scorer to 2 rounds to go, and could have nailed it. And Adam Reynolds got him. So given the opportunity and with some good players around him, I think he'll do a good job.
You obviously coached him a while back. Would the goal be to head coach him again, or would that be something you'd be interested in?
That'd be nice. But there's part of me that says, I would like to coach him again. But also he's got his own career. I can't be, he can't be following me around, or I can't be following him around. He just needs to, if our paths cross, that'd be great. But as I said, it's not something we talk about. He just needs to concentrate on his career, and to a certain point, I need to concentrate on mine. So, and if our 2 paths cross, great.
Yeah. So, what are your plans for next year, if you don't mind us asking?
I'm doing Fox, and doing Fox again, and doing 2GB, the radio station. I'll do those games on Saturday night, and I'm doing a coaching job with Macedonian Rugby League at the moment, which is a little bit of fun. Really enjoyed it. They're trying to qualify for the World Cup in 25. They're going to go to the European Cup next year, and if they win that pool, they get that last position in the World Cup for 2025. So they had a really good win on the weekend. They played Vietnam and won 56-0, and they got a couple of games in the new year against some other nations like Malta, Lebanon, and so on. So if they can nail that last position in the World Cup, it'd be great. And as I said, really enjoyed being involved with an emerging nation as such.
Yeah. Just like few more questions. What are your thoughts on the current rules, like the new rules, like the 6 again, the 2-point field goals? Any thoughts on those?
I didn't mind the 2-point field goals. I didn't think we'd see too many, and then right at the tail end of the year, we saw some. So that was exciting, and some really smart footy played there as well. So I enjoyed that. The 6 again, it came in really late, and sides didn't get an opportunity to practice too much. And I think 12 months down the track, with a bit of everyone playing underneath those rules, sides will adjust and adapt a lot more.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. With the 2040, we haven't seen too many teams attempt it. As a coach, would you be wanting your team to attempt those a bit more?
No, not really, because we're stuck inside our 20 and we have to hope on getting a 2040. We haven't done a real good job getting out of our end, but there has been a couple of attempts, and it's been some really good defence that have got trap sides inside their 20, but I don't see it happening too often. It's just a real high risk play, and if you are going for it, it's probably the last resort, because you have got caught inside your 20 and against a side that's defended really well. But if you're having a shot for it and you're against a side that's defended really well, they've probably got their both wingers back and their fullback back as well. So it's going to be a hard job. So it's a rule there that they put in there to challenge sides if you want to do it. High risk and entertainment. I understand it, but as a coach, not for me.
Sweet. Thanks, Shane, for coming on. We've really enjoyed it. Been a long time coming, but it's definitely been worth it.
Yep.
Anything else?
Good on you, boys. Good on you, boys, and good luck with your podcast, and I'll be watching.
Cheers. Thank you.
Good on you. See you, mate.
Bye.
See ya.